Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest session of Ask Dr. Sharon. I'm Sharon Walt, the Hashimoto Health Coach, and I'm delighted that you're joining me here today, either watching live or watching the replay. So the whole reason behind the Ask Dr. Sharon sessions are for me to answer any questions you might have about autoimmune conditions in general and Hashimoto's in particular. So if you have any questions, you can either put them in the comments below or private message me, and whatever will get that, I'll get those answered for you. Most of the time I get some of the questions come from my clients and also some friends and family. But today's question came from a series of webinars that I've been watching. It's just been fascinating. And it's all about folate. And so the question is, well, who needs folate? Well, the short answer is everyone does. Now, usually we only hear about folate, which is vitamin B9, with respect to pregnancy and fetal development. But its importance is far more widespread. So first, let's discuss what body processes that folate is crucial to maintaining, what they are, and then I'll discuss ways of ensuring how to get enough to optimize our health. Okay, so just going on here, what are some of the roles that folate contributes to? Well, the main one, the crucial one, is a process called methylation. Now, simply, methylation is a reaction in which a methyl group is attached to a molecule in the body. And a methyl group is just a carbon atom surrounded by 3 hydrogen atoms. And when it attaches to a molecule, it causes changes to occur. And these changes can be quite widespread. So I want to spend just a little bit of time here talking about some of them. So the first one, so what we refer to as epigenetic changes in gene expression. Okay, so that's a bit of a mouthful there. So let's just break it down a bit. Now, I've spoken before about epigenetics, but here's a brief review. Our DNA, so that's the physical strands, the helix, are generally basically static or unchangeable unless they're damaged. So that means that pretty much what's there is determining who you are, all your physical characteristics, and that doesn't change. But along these strands are markers or tags which can turn certain sections of DNA on or off. And this influences how our genetics are expressed. So think of it as making changes to our body's operating manual in how the different body systems function. So an epigenetic change refers to the changes in our operating manual caused by turning on or turning off the tags on our DNA. Now, what causes this, the differences in the tags? Well, the changes are brought about by changes in our body environment. So think of diet and lifestyle. And these changes are implemented through the process of methylation. So think of that. This is really very, very good news for anyone who may have inherited some, let's call, less than optimal genetics. It doesn't mean that, let's say, you have a genetic background or a family background, let's say in an autoimmune condition. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to inherit that autoimmune condition. There are things that you can do to try and make some changes to that. Okay, you can change the outcome. So that's the very first important thing for methylation. And think of this too. Remember, one of the root causes to developing an autoimmune condition such as Hashimoto's is having a genetic predisposition for it. So if you needed some reason to think of how important this whole process of methylation is, yes, if you have Hashimoto's, then this is something that is important to you. Okay, the next function is what we call DNA synthesis. Now, Our DNA is replicating continuously, so it's continually making copies of itself. Okay, which is good news because you don't want to be suddenly changing, partway through. So methylation is required to maintain the correct synthesis, so to making the correct copy. Now, if you have problems with poor methylation, this can lead to breakages in the DNA structure, which means subsequent copies are not going to be the same. So that can be a problem. And this can lead to, not only damage, but can lead to predisposition to disease structure. Okay. Now, the third one, function that methylation is really important for is in energy production. So methylation is needed to support mitochondrial function. Now, mitochondria are the organelles that are in every cell except for red blood cells. And these cells produce the energy that keeps the cells going, that keeps us going. So we definitely need methylation there. The next big area is in detoxification. Methylation is one of the critical processes in the liver that changes fat-soluble toxins into water-soluble toxins that can be then excreted. So what types of things need to be detoxed or metabolized? Well, one of them is hormones. So remember, hormones are chemical messengers for the body, and after they've done their job, they need to be metabolized or excreted or reused in a different way. Buildups can cause unwelcome interactions, some leading to DNA damage. Now, let's have an example here. Estrogen needs to be metabolized, and it needs the COMT enzyme to do this. And COMT needs a methyl group in order to work. Okay, and this is actually something that is reasonably common. It's not having an enzyme that is either produced in enough quantity, or in other ways is just not as available as it needs to be. And then you have what we call an estrogen dominance that's going on that causes all kinds of chaos in the body. Now, other substances that need to be detoxed include heavy metals, drugs and medications, what we call endogenous compounds. So those are compounds or substances that are made in the body, such as adrenaline and histamine. So you can see if you've got a buildup of that, especially adrenaline producing maybe you have some chronic anxiety, or histamine, which is produced by the immune system. And if you've got a chronic histamine response, then you have probably have hives, you have runny nose, like hay fever all the time, basically. Okay, so that's a really, really important function. And the last one I just want to briefly mention is just in the whole area of fertility. Methylation is crucial for, as we mentioned before, DNA replication, not just for the host or the mother, but also for the fetus as well. It's important for cell differentiation and embryonic development. And that's one of the reasons why pregnant women, lactate women, or women that are hoping to become pregnant will supplement with a folate supplement in order to ensure that embryonic development goes well. Okay, so we looked at all of these different functions here. Now, from that list, you can see that methylation is critically important to most of our body functions. And either hyper or hypomethylation has been associated with various health disorders. Now, the methylation pathway, which is a name for the really complex biochemical interactions that are occurring, requires certain substrates and cofactors to work. Folate is a substrate that's needed in order to provide the methyl groups that methylation process is based on. Okay, so all of this talk about methylation and all of the functions that I've just gone through all requires that you have adequate amounts of folate in your body in order to make sure that this keeps happening properly. Now, there's some other essential cofactors that are also needed in order to help out the folate, and these are other B vitamins such as B12, B6, and B2, but you also need zinc and vitamin C. Now, one of the things I want to talk about here, just briefly, is that if you have Hashimoto's, you will likely have a problem absorbing the necessary B vitamins. And this is because you need digestive enzymes, you need stomach acid and pepsin in order for your B vitamins to be absorbed. So with Hashimoto's, you have a decrease in the production of all your digestive enzymes. Now, depending on the person, sometimes it could be a huge decrease, and some people won't really notice it at all. It can be quite individual there. But if you do have a decrease in production of stomach acid, then you're going to have problems with absorbing these key nutrients. And if you can't absorb your B vitamins, then you're going to have a lot of problems. And one of them is with the whole methylation process, which is going to affect so many of the body functions. So you can see this kind of dominoes effect where you have one thing that is creating one series of events that just affects almost the rest of the body. Okay. Next question here is, how do we know if we have enough folate? Well, one of the easiest ways is to have a blood test done. And the one that is probably the easiest to get, that your doctor's not going to kick up too much of a fuss about, is called a whole blood count, or sometimes called a complete blood count. And this particular test looks at the status or the state of your red and your white blood cells. Now, the specific test that we look at is called the MCV of your red blood cell. Now, the MVC is your medium cell volume. So basically, we're looking at the size of your red blood cell. Now, specifically, if your red blood cells are too large, it's an indication that your folate and or your B12 levels are too low. Okay, so this means if your MVC is high, that means your red blood cells are too large. And this is just kind of an indication about folate and B12 levels. The other thing that happens is when your blood cells are too large, it means they have problems getting through the small capillaries of your circulatory system, and you can feel that your fingers and toes are cooler or cold. That means that you're not getting enough circulation through them. So that's just a bit of an aside there. Okay, so you can always get your whole blood count done. Okay, it's a fairly simple thing. Now, where can we get folate? Well, from my viewpoint, it's best to get it from our food. So how much do we need? Well, adults need about 400 micrograms per day. So a microgram is pretty darn tiny. Pregnant or lactating women need substantially more, anywhere from 500 to 600 micrograms a day. So how can we get that? Well, 1 cup of spinach will give about 260 micrograms. So that's a big part right there. A cup of lentils, about 360 micrograms. A cup of avocado, 90. Even sunflower seeds and peanuts will give between 80 and 90 micrograms. Okay, so that's basically, this is just some guidelines that you can get a lot of that from your food, specifically plant. Now, for a lot of people, getting sufficient folate from food isn't possible. Okay, so the people that are probably more at risk are ones that come from a poor socioeconomic background. That means they actually can't afford to buy good food. The elderly are going to need more folate, or sorry, it's not that they need more, they just may have some more problems actually getting enough. So supplementation is an answer. And the most common supplement is folic acid, which is added to many foods, such as breads. Now, in recent years, there's been a lot of discussion about the relative merits of folic acid versus other forms of folate that are more bioavailable. Now, that is a much more deeper dive, and I am happy to discuss that in the very next session. And I will discuss the pros and cons about the different types of folate supplementation and other things that you need to know about just being able to absorb folate into the body so that all of these other processes involved in methylation can actually go through. Okay, hopefully you found that interesting and useful. I said, if you've got any questions, put them in the comment section below, or you can always get in touch, and we'll try and answer what's coming up. Now, as usual, I want to say too, if you've got some questions about your own personal health that you would like to discuss, then here is the booking, my booking link. That you can book a free 20-minute consultation with me. And so I'm just going to put it up on the banner as well here for those who can't get that. Okay. And we can discuss your concerns and what your next best step is. Okay. That's it for me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Okay. Bye for now.